A Trip to a Foreign Land. Chapter 1: Journey to the Unknown, the beginning of an adventure. The sun was setting over the city skyline as Mark stepped off the plane, his heart beating with excitement and anticipation. He had always dreamed of traveling to a new country, and now he was finally here. As he made his way through the busy airport, the sights and sounds of the unfamiliar environment filled him with a sense of wonder and adventure. Mark had planned his trip for months, researching everything from the local customs to the best places to eat and explore. But as he stepped out into the city streets, he realized that there was only so much he could prepare for. The sounds of foreign languages, the smells of exotic foods, and the bustling crowds all around him were a thrilling and overwhelming experience. As he walked through the city, Mark couldn't help but feel a sense of nervousness creeping in. This was a place so different from everything he had ever known, and the thought of being lost or misunderstood filled him with anxiety. But he was determined to embrace this new experience, to push himself out of his comfort zone, and to explore everything this new country had to offer. He checked into his hotel and set out to explore the city, taking in the sights and sounds around him with wide-eyed wonder. The towering buildings, bustling streets, and colorful storefronts were all a blur of new and exciting experiences. As he wandered through the city, he made a mental list of all the places he wanted to visit, all the foods he wanted to try, and all the adventures he wanted to have. But as the day wore on, Mark found himself growing more and more tired, his jet lag catching up to him. He knew he needed to rest if he wanted to make the most of his trip, so he headed back to his hotel to get some much-needed sleep. As he lay in his bed, Mark couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement and anticipation for the adventures that lay ahead. He had only just arrived, but already he felt like he was on the brink of something amazing. The journey had only just begun, and he couldn't wait to see where it would take him next. Chapter 2: Culture Shock. Mark stepped off the plane and was immediately struck by the heat and humidity of the new country. He could feel the sweat starting to bead on his forehead as he made his way through the airport. As he walked towards the exit, Mark couldn't help but feel a little overwhelmed by the new sights and sounds of the bustling city. He had never been to a place so different from his home country before, and he wasn't sure where to begin. As he made his way to his hotel, Mark realized that he had forgotten to bring a converter for his electronics. He had assumed that the outlets in the new country would be the same as those back home, but he quickly realized that this was not the case. When he finally arrived at the hotel, Mark was relieved to find that the staff spoke English. However, he soon realized that there were still many cultural differences that he was not familiar with. As he walked through the city, Mark was struck by the way that people interacted with each other. The social norms were completely different from what he was used to, and he found it difficult to navigate these new customs. Despite these challenges, Mark was determined to make the most of his trip. He knew that he would need to take things one step at a time and be open to new experiences, if he wanted to truly immerse himself in the culture of this new country. Chapter 3: Finding His Way. Mark woke up early the next day, feeling excited but also a little nervous about exploring the city on his own. He had heard about a local market that he wanted to visit, but he wasn't sure how to get there. He decided to ask the hotel staff for directions, and they were happy to help. Mark quickly realized that asking for help and advice was going to be a key part of his journey. As he walked through the streets, Mark marveled at the different architecture, the vibrant colors of the buildings, and the smells of the local food vendors. He tried some of the local cuisine and was pleasantly surprised at how delicious it was. As he approached the market, Mark could feel his nerves starting to kick in again. The crowds and the noise were overwhelming, and he didn't know where to start. But he took a deep breath and reminded himself that he was here to embrace new experiences. Mark spent the next few hours wandering through the market, trying new foods and bargaining with the local vendors. He found it exhilarating to be so far out of his comfort zone and to be exploring a completely new world. As the day started to wind down, Mark realized that he had lost track of time and that he needed to make his way back to the hotel. He decided to take a taxi, but quickly realized that the traffic was chaotic and that the rules of the road were different from what he was used to. Despite these challenges, Mark arrived back at the hotel feeling invigorated and proud of himself for taking on this new adventure. He knew that there would be more challenges to come, but he was excited to see where his journey would take him next. Chapter 4: Culture Shock. Mark had been in the country for a few weeks now and was starting to feel more comfortable navigating his way around. He had gotten used to the language barrier and even started picking up a few common phrases. However, he still felt like an outsider in many ways. One day, Mark decided to explore a local market. As he wandered through the crowded stalls, he felt overwhelmed by the unfamiliar sights and sounds. He tried to approach a vendor to ask about a product, but was met with confusion and a language barrier. Mark felt frustrated and out of place. As he continued through the market, he noticed how different the products were from what he was used to back home. The food was different, the clothing was different, and even the way people interacted with each other was different. Mark realized that he was experiencing culture shock. He started to feel homesick and missed the familiarity of his own culture. He began to question whether he had made the right decision to travel to this new country. Mark wondered if he would ever feel truly comfortable here. However, as he continued to explore the market, Mark started to appreciate the beauty of the culture he was experiencing. He began to understand that differences were what made the world an interesting place. He decided to take small steps to immerse himself in the culture, such as trying new foods and attending local events. Mark realized that culture shock was a natural part of the experience of traveling to a new country. It was not always easy, but it was an opportunity for growth and learning. He felt grateful for the opportunity to expand his horizons and embrace a new way of life. With this newfound appreciation for the culture, Mark felt more excited than ever to continue his travels and learn all that he could about the country he was visiting. Chapter 5: Discovering the Culture. Mark had been in the new country for a few weeks now, and he was starting to feel more comfortable with his surroundings. He had learned a few basic phrases in the local language, and he was beginning to get the hang of the public transportation system. One day, he decided to go on a walking tour of the city. The tour was led by a local guide who showed him all the major landmarks and gave him a detailed history of the city. Mark was fascinated by everything he saw and heard. He was amazed by the intricate architecture of the buildings, the colorful street art, and the bustling energy of the markets. He also enjoyed tasting some of the local foods and trying out new drinks. The tour ended at a small cafe, where the guide invited Mark to sit down and chat for a while. They talked about the city's culture and customs, and the guide shared some of his own experiences growing up in the area. Mark was grateful for the opportunity to learn more about the local culture. He realized that there was so much more to this country than just the language barrier, and he felt a deeper connection to the people and the place. After the tour, Mark continued to explore the city on his own, seeking out new experiences and soaking up as much of the local culture as he could. He felt more confident in his ability to navigate the city, and he was excited to see what other adventures lay ahead. As he walked through the streets, he couldn't help but smile at how far he had come since that nervous first day in the airport. He knew that there were still challenges to overcome and more lessons to learn, but he was ready to face them head-on, armed with a newfound sense of curiosity and adventure.